Yeah, he's real old. As a matter of fact, can you guess his age?
Go ahead, make your guess right now, Zach.
I'm excited to welcome you guys on to the 6th episode of What Coaches Think. Today we have 3 great coaches from Ohio State, and let's just get right into this. I mean, you guys are having a great season last year, getting ready for whatever this upcoming year is going to look like. Let's take us through the beginning processes. All you guys have got to Ohio State. Know Coach Holtman. I mean, Coach Diebler, we'll start with you. How did you get to know Coach Holtman and kind of create this bond to get out here?
Yeah, so I didn't know Coach Holtman really very well until I got a chance to work here. But when he first got to Ohio State, because of my ties with my brother playing here, I started to build a relationship with him. I actually knew both Coach Pedon and Coach Johnson. Coach Pedon and I, just through coaching circles, have been connected for a long time. And then Coach Johnson actually coached against me when I was a player at Valpo, and then when I was a coach at Valpo, all while he was at Butler. So I've been familiar with those guys for a long time, got a chance to get to know Coach Holtman once he got the job here at Ohio State. So my relationship with him has developed more recently. But yeah, it all started kind of with just my connections and ties to Ohio State once he got here, and just, took off from there.
So how would you guys beat in?
Yeah, so my connection with Coach Holtman goes back a ways. I first met him actually at a Final Four party that was at Brad Stevens' house. Hosted a group of people over at his house, and that was when I first met him. I got to be, friendly with Coach Holtman when we were both assistants in the Mid-American Conference. I was at Toledo, University of Toledo, and he worked for John Gross at Ohio University, and spent a lot of time watching him. And then fast forward a couple years after that, I worked for John Gross at University of Illinois. And so there was obviously a kind of a common connection there. I was working for his former boss, and that sort of got my foot in the door to get on his staff at Butler. So, yeah.
And for you, Coach Johnson, take us through how did you get to know Coach Holtman and become a member of Ohio State?
I met Coach Holtman about the same time Coach Pedon did at Brad Stevens' house during that Final Four. Actually, I was the ops guy at Butler at the time, and then I just met him out recruiting once I came back to Butler to be assistant, and then Coach Holtman left Gardner Webb to be assistant at Butler after Coach Stevens left to go take the Celtics job, and so Coach Holtman 1 year with him as assistant at Butler, and then obviously he took over as the head coach at Butler, and then just followed him over here after that.
And so, Coach Diebler, obviously you've been around a couple of different coaches now. Coach Stevens is a great coach. What separates Coach Holtman, though? Why is he so special, and just what's it like being around him every day?
Yeah, Coach is the best I've ever been around at developing relationships with his players. I think he genuinely invests time, with guys on an individual basis, not just on the court, around practice and workouts, but off the court. And I think that trust level that he's able to build with them, which, starts in the recruiting process to some degree, that's been the most impressive thing that I've been able to learn and from him and watch him develop since I've been here. He genuinely cares and invests real time in building relationships with our guys.
And for you, Coach Pedon, how about you? How's he separate himself? What's so special about Coach Holtman?
Yeah, I think my answer to that would be on some similar lines there. The word or words that always come to mind when people ask me about him are, I always say, like, the thing that I think stands out the most is that he's genuine and authentic. Like, he's as real as it comes. And as he's developing relationships in recruiting, and for guys that he coaches here, like, what you see is what you get with Coach Holt. And he is a great dude, very down to earth. He's going to coach in truth. That's how he operates. So he's going to hold the best player on our team to a standard, and he's going to coach to that. And he's going to hold our youngest guy or our walk-on on the team. He's going to hold him to that same standard and coach him to that. So you know what to expect from him on a daily basis. And that's what I'd say: genuine, authentic, and coaches to a standard and coaches in truth.
And now for you, Coach Johnson, I mean, you're around him. What's some of the biggest things now you've learned from him as a coach that has really kind of taught you new aspects to the coaching life?
Probably, I like Coach Pete hit it on the nail. And I talked about this, I think, about a week ago or so. He's speaking truth. Like, you're going to know exactly what's on his mind. There's not going to be there's no gray area. He speaks in truth with us as a staff, the players, and anybody he come in contact with. And probably other than this truth, how competitive he is. Like, regardless what it is, whether it's us on the floor or him off the floor, like, he's a competitive guy, and that's what he wants of all of us. Like, whatever we're doing, be competitive and speaking truth.
And I think the biggest thing for each program is obviously creating a culture, creating what you guys necessarily represent as a team. For you, Coach Diebler, I mean, what would you say when you try getting a freshman in here or recruiting a guy? What's the culture that you're looking for? What's the culture that you're trying to build around?
Yeah, competitiveness, toughness, operating, with high integrity and a sense of humility about the way you go about your business on a daily basis. And, Coach leads by example for us. It's very easy for us to follow because, he is the culture that, that we've created here. And then we rely on our upperclassmen to help, maintain it. There's a consistency component, I think, to culture. That's one of the most important things that I think oftentimes, people forget about is creating a culture, but maintaining a culture and having consistency and upperclassmen are an important part of that. But, they help set that stage and set that tone for freshmen when they get on campus and get started. But here it's really easy. I mean, coach is, who he is, and who he is sets the tone for our culture. And, it's our job to help communicate that throughout the, entirety of the program and make it very clear what that is, to those we're recruiting too.
Absolutely. And for you, Coach Pedon, now you have his 2020 freshman class, and just getting freshmen acclimated is difficult every year. I mean, trying to get them into the system and all whatnot. This year with COVID, not getting guys on campus on time, practice issues, I mean, all this stuff happening. How are you using these 2020 guys like Eugene Brown, like Zed Key, to get them involved? How are you working them in?
Yeah, it's a good question. And there's been no blueprint for it. Obviously, we've all sort of adjusted on the fly and had to. I think this summer, and this has been a conscious decision from Coach Holt, has been like trying to keep our regular schedule as much as we possibly can. When we brought those guys back, it was about the same time that we would start summer school. We stuck with the traditional plan that we would over the summer as best we could. Obviously, we couldn't work out with our guys as much. So that sort of, I think that it could hurt our younger guys' development a little bit in terms of knowledge of our system and just how we do things on the court. But, we've had to adjust. Coach, we had the opportunity to keep guys here all the way through the whole summer until school starts in the fall. And Coach was like, no, he said, I don't want to do that. He said, the year is long enough. Let's stick with our normal yearly routine. He talks about routine a lot and how important that is. So we let guys go home after summer school was done. And, that way they can be with their families, get refreshed, and, be ready to go once they get back here for the fall. So, yeah, long-winded answer there, but, it's been a change for all of us, I think, and we're all sort of navigating it, in our own separate ways.
And Coach Johnson, I mean, we don't know what this year is going to look like. We know some conferences started playing football they're playing for, some of them are canceling it. Basketball's still up in the air in terms of what it's going to look like. When things are not necessarily known, when you don't know what the schedule is going to look like, how do you plan for this? How are you getting guys ready, not knowing exactly when to start, what things are going to look like? How are you preparing your team for this?
Well, just by being around them once they get back to campus. Just trying to keep them as much as we can on their schedule, their classes, whether they have online classes or they may be in class. Far from basketball standpoint, like if we could get in the gym when they allow us to work them out individually, we're going to be there with them. And just being in there with getting that sweat equity in with them, talking with them, going to lunch with them. That's pretty much about it until we find out exactly what we can do. Like we don't know when we're going to be able to get together as a complete team. Like our guys haven't played open gym with each other. We had most together, I think maybe 6 guys together in the gym. That's about it. Or we were just working them out one-on-one. So we will probably end up doing some breakdowns. And I know for sure we'll do breakdowns with our defense with just four guys at a time and coaches in there. But we're just going to go as the NCAA or our campus allow us to work with our guys and do as best as we can, because we're not the only schools in this situation. And then as it moves forward and the virus, hopefully we'll slowly get a handle on that. We'll go as they allow us to.
And so for you, Coach Diebler, I mean, when you look at the situation you guys have for this year, what are you kind of feeling is going to be the outcome? I mean, you guys aren't able to scrimmage against each other. A couple guys in the gym at once. Obviously, I don't think you guys would prefer just going right into a season after this type of stuff. How do you kind of see this panning out? Do you see it being a conference schedule all year? What kind of are your kind of expectations for the upcoming season?
Yeah, Zach, if I knew, man, I could probably give me a lot of money if I knew the plan right now.
$1 million question.
That's it's the unknown to all of this is probably one of the biggest most challenging aspects of all of this, right? Like not knowing exactly what things are going to look like. I love the maturity we have within our team and the way they've handled all of this, and I think it's going to benefit us greatly as we prepare for, as we're allowed, we prepare for, some degree of normalcy, anticipating that there will be changes. What those changes are, it's hard to say, but, I know we're fortunate to have a world-class medical center on our campus that's going to give us, the best opportunity possible to get our guys out there in the most safe way. So trusting the leaders of, on our campus, the leaders of, our conference and obviously waiting to hear from, NCAA as far as basketball goes, what we can and cannot do. But yeah, it's so hard to tell right now because, it seems like, although it will go fast, it seems like we are a long ways away from, any sort of formal decision being made, and certainly a long ways away from the season getting started.
And we see with the TBT, we see with the NBA now, this bubble formula clearly is working. No positive cases have happened. Is that something, I know there's been rumors about, is that something you see, Coach Pedon, possibly happening where it could be a bubble format for college basketball if it's the tournament, if it is conference play? Do you see a bubble kind of coming into play at some point possibly?
Well, it's a great concept. There's no doubt. And there's a ton of logistics that go into it. Some of which will be in our control. I think some of it, because they are student athletes, could be out of our control too. So it's different. I think there's definitely a difference between the pro model and the amateur model. If you consider the fact that students need to be in the classroom, okay? I think it tweaks a little bit if it's all online, okay? If classes are all online, I think that can that could change the look of it, maybe in a favorable way. But I think the powers that be in college basketball are doing everything they can sort of behind the scenes to formulate the best plan possible. And I know we're all hopeful, whatever that means, whatever that looks like. It's like our players are asking us to act like, weekly, like what is it, coach, what's it going to be like, or what's it going to look like, or are we going to have a non-conference schedule? And the truth is we don't know, but I think we all have to be open-minded and being willing to roll with the punches and deal with whatever comes our way. So I know we'll be prepared to do that, but the bubble model it's worked. Obviously it's worked, and watching the NBA games has been, I think, a real breath of fresh air for all of us, right? Being able to see a competitive environment like that. So hopeful that whatever that looks like, we can have some form of that in terms of game competition.
And for you, Coach Johnson, I mean, if the logistics work out in terms of the education aspect, in terms of financial aspects, is the bubble model something that you would support? Would you be down for being able to go out there and be a part of the bubble and go out there for it is a month span, a couple of weeks span, whatever it might look like?
Oh, for sure. If it allow our guys to play and showcase their abilities and our team to get out there and play. Now, our wives might not like that very well. Especially, I have 3 boys, so she wouldn't like that very well. But hey, if that's what it's called for, I'm definitely willing to do whatever it takes to have our team out there playing basketball.
Absolutely. And Coach Diebler, I mean, you mentioned the importance of having the upperclassmen leaders not only develop guys as a freshman, but during this time. How important would you say is defining maybe 1 or 2 guys in the locker room every season that is a leader? And how much more important is it even for this upcoming year to have true leaders in your locker room?
Yeah, I think it's important. I don't know if, it's always necessary to designate just, a couple guys. A lot of times that happens organically. And also, I think if your culture is right, which, we have a great thing going here, everybody's bought in. Like everybody takes ownership, to some degree of where we're trying to go. Obviously, different people have different, voices, and some guys are more comfortable saying and speaking more than others. But I love the buy-in of our team, and I think it does speak. Part of that is the maturity that we have. But we do have some upperclassmen who have, been in college basketball for a few years, who have been a part of some big time, victories and battles, and have gone through some adversity, whether it's, injuries or whatever it may be. We got some experienced guys who are, taking the lead on a lot of this and helping set a tone for our team and how we're handling the unknown aspect of all of this.
Zach, I want to add on to that too, because I think it's a great point. And Jake and I were talking about this morning. The leadership aspect is always important for any, successful program, but I think it's going to take on an even greater role this year, in my opinion, because of, there's the element of not just physical toughness, but mental toughness in terms of the unknown, right? Like things likely will be different. The start of practice will be different. Will we be able to practice with a full team in early months of the fall? How many games will we play? What will the NCAA tournament look like? There's so many unknowns. So I just think your ability and our ability to roll with the punches and make the most of adverse circumstances or different circumstances, like I think that can separate teams in terms of the approach and mindset that you have coming in the door. And then on top of that, we talked about this morning as well, but watching the NBA games with no crowd and no home environment, like your in-game leadership and connectedness as a team is like, I don't know about you, you've watched the games, but I notice like body language is like, to me, can even become even more important. Connectedness and showing frustration. You can see the teams that have that and are able to master that versus the teams that are really struggling with that. And I think in a stale environment like we're going to probably be likely playing in, I think that kind of stuff can, a lot of times mean the difference between wins and losses. So I think leadership's a big part of it for sure.
And how well your guys get along together off the floor.
Yeah.
That connection that they have off the floor, it leads right onto on the floor. And if they connect it off, and which just so far this summer, our guys that they've been around each other a lot. They like being around each other. It's going to carry over to the floor. It's going to carry over.
Right.
Absolutely. And I want to kind of go off what you're talking about, Coach P, in terms of the crowd aspects. That's something that we constantly hear right now at the NBA. Guys like LeBron, guys like saying that they're so used to having the large crowds, a large amount of people is around them. When you come to that, I mean, that is an impact. It's almost more like organized pickup ball to a degree, if you want to call it that. What kind of impact will that have for guys, especially at the college level? Do you think there's going to be a difference in guys that might play better because they're not being fans and some guys that might not play as well because of the fans? We'll start with you, Coach Diebler.
Yeah, that's such a foreign concept, to even us, that played and our guys. Obviously, it's hard to say how guys are going to respond to that, but I do think, because of the type of competitors that we have in our program, don't fear too much our guys not bringing it. just because there aren't fans there. And I know the way our guys work when no one's watching. And I anticipate that same mentality and work ethic and competitiveness and toughness translating. But there's something to be said about, the feeling you get when you go on a little run in your own arena. And, here we got over 19,000 people screaming and cheering, and, momentum shifts, or if you're on the road and you can silence, a large crowd, and you go into your huddle, you just made them call a timeout, like all that stuff certainly matters. It's going to be interesting to see, with that absent, assuming that it's going to be absent, how that impacts guys, individually and the flow and the momentum of the game.
Absolutely. And Coach Pedon, I saw some people talking about this. You guys are a high major. You guys are used to playing in front of 19,000 people a day, each game having the energy, having that vibe. When you guys now talk about possibly going against other schools that might not have as many fans at games and all that, do you think those guys will be able to play at a higher level because they're more used to not playing in front of as many people? I mean, when you guys play the small, lower majors, mid-major kind of schools?
Yeah, I would like to think not. I would like to think that the teams that have guys that have motors that you don't have to rev up for artificial reasons, that are competing at a high level because they're stepping on the court, you'd like to think like that's going to put those types of teams at an advantage. It's going to be completely different for our conference. So Big Ten Conference for 44 consecutive years has led the nation in attendance. So whether it's a Sunday night or a Wednesday evening or a Saturday afternoon, like you go on the road, you are going into a ruckus environment. Like it is going to be crazy. So it's going to be totally different in conference. Like that aspect will be interesting to see. And I think it will favor teams that have highly motivated, highly connected, energized guys with motors, as opposed to guys that you got to kind of rev up. If you have 3 or 4 guys that you play in your rotation that you got to rev up every other game, like I think that can become very problematic. But I'm sort of, I'm forecasting, I guess, a little bit. We're all sort of trying to think ahead a little and what that will feel like. But I agree with what Jake was saying, like your enthusiasm and connectedness, things like that is, I think will be very important.
As Coach Pedon just said, Coach Johnson, Big 10 has led you guys in 44 years now, having the most fans at games. And you guys have a couple different teams that you guys are massive rivals with, guys like Michigan State. Those are always big-time games that you notice what comes with it by playing those games. How much different will that be, stepping in an atmosphere where not only is it just packed out, but it's that rivalry kind of feeling? How's that going to shift if there are no fans, if it's not the same?
Oh, I'm going to love it because you're going to hear my voice, that high-pitched voice of mine on the defensive end. So. But I'm going to be, from a defensive standpoint, like I'm going to be able to tell how tuned, locked in our guys are, because they're going to be talking or they're not. If they're silent now, that's going to be a problem. Just really, like we talked about how connected our team going to be. Like guys, we're going to be able to hear the other team calls coming down the floor. We're going to be able to adjust on the fly probably a little bit better. But it all going to depend on how many guys you got on the floor that could talk, or your bench. How connected is your bench going to be helping out in scouting reports, stuff like. So the communication piece for me, I think, is going to be huge. And coaches talk about it all the time, from practice, dapping each other up, helping a teammate up. Like that stuff really going to show right now. You're playing with no fans in there. I mean, that's going to show obviously, like right here and now. And you're going to know as a coach right away if your team connected or not. And from the way we preach it on a daily basis, like it's an expectation. Like we expect the guys to get a 3.0 each semester. Like we're expecting us to be connected, dapping each other up, even when it's a bad time. Like, hey, keep your head up, move on to the next play. It's really going to get tested in an environment where there's not going to be anybody in the stands.
Absolutely. And Coach Diebler, I mean, we grow up in AAU world. We see the coaches constantly preaching, talking defense, keep talking, all that stuff. Obviously, no one really planned on recruiting for COVID concerns beforehand, but you look at your recruiting stance. When you look at a guy, you go watch the game, you watch film, how critical is it that you see a guy talking on the court, on the bench, when you're truly trying to recruit a player?
It's very important because it's important to our program. And, how guys communicate with their teammates, with their coaches, their body language, even, pre and post game, like watching all of that stuff is important. Absolutely. Very, very important.
Kind of piggyback off that, Coach Pedon. I mean, I know some coaches talk about guys that bring different versions of communication. Some are kind of the soft-spoken leaders, the guys that kind of talk one-on-one teammates. Some are the loud teammates that just talk nonstop. For you, what does the Ohio State locker room look like? Who's some of the guys that you look to that's kind of, you can kind of count as going to be a leader that's going to kind of help lead a team communication-wise?
Yeah, there's hopefully our older guys year by year. We've got Kyle Young has been here. This will be his 4th year. C.J. Walker, this will be his 3rd year in our program, 2nd year as a player. I think you hope to regenerate your leadership year after year after year. And the way you do that is your younger guys learn from your older guys. And by the time your younger guys get older, they're the ones leading. We all know, not everyone talks as much as others. There are different ways to lead. I think you definitely need a guy or two that are going to be vocal for you and be able to command a locker room or command a team and have that kind of presence. But we've had some really successful leaders here that have led by example a lot. And I would argue, hey, of course we want them to speak more, and you always have guys you want to talk more, but I would argue that sometimes having a couple of those guys that can lead by example, that's just as valuable in a lot of ways. And ultimately, I think we would prefer that to come from our older guys for sure.
And you, Coach Johnson, being around now a few different kinds of locker rooms, a lot of different kind of players in your career now, kind of give us a couple of guys who kind of make like a 5-man roster, something of guys that you look to as being kind of the best leaders you've been at and you've been around.
Ooh, wow. I would have to say I was work ethic. When you're watching guys in recruiting, high motor guys, you want guys with high motor that you don't have to just motivate. They just playing because they love the game. And then what Jake and Pete talked about, this guys that you watching how they carry themselves on the bench after the games. You just watching. You get there and watch warm-ups. How do you warm up? Are you just jacking around or are you locked in? Because sometimes kids, they cross that line and it's still playtime. But then you'll see some that it's not playtime when they cross. You'll see them playing before they get the headphones on, they get to the bench. But when they cross over that line, it's kind of like a switch come on, and guys just lock right into whatever job they have to get done at that time. And I've been around some high-level guys, some guys that can't pass, can't dribble, can't shoot well, but they had all the intangibles. They could break down the other team's scouting report right there on the spot for you because they paid attention to their coaching staff. And then they're talking, helping others out. One guy, I guess I will mention one guy, Ronald Norred, because he's assistant coach with the Charlotte Bobcats, high level. And can't nobody that I've been around talk back T, you could have picked somebody else. No, Ronald Norred is high level detail in breaking down another team's from a defensive standpoint. And then another thing with Ron, he knew his role. He knew his role. He wasn't trying to do things he couldn't do. He knew how to get the ball to Gordon Hayward. He knew how to get the ball to Shelvin Mack. He knew how to get the ball to Matt Howard. He got the right guys. Zach Hahn coming off the bench. He got guys the ball. Sean Van Zandt. He got guys the ball. Ronald Norwood, probably by far one of my favorites and high-level guy that didn't make it in the NBA as a player, but he's there as a coach for a reason. And, people just draw to him. And we try to find guys that, things that they're doing now that translate from what they're doing in high school, and it carries over how they carry in their life. It carries over to college. It just translates real easy. And you try to find that in guys. And hopefully you can see it in their play or when you're talking to people around them.
Absolutely. And for you, Coach Diebler, now, when you're recruiting, we'll get into the recruiting process, code adjustment-wise in a minute, but you're trying to build this roster together. We obviously know you have your go-to scorer, maybe one or two other guys. But as Coach Johnson's brought up, you need the role players. You need guys that know their role that's established on a team. How do you build a roster to kind of fill each one of those roles, and what are you looking for in roles on the team?
Yeah, it fits a huge part for us in the recruiting process, and certainly, opportunities change by class and things, but there's certain things that are kind of non-negotiables that we're looking for in it, and whether it's competitiveness or good feel and understanding of the game. Like there's certainly a lot that we're looking for in the recruiting process that helps us put the pieces together. And you try to project when that opportunity will be greatest in their career. But I think here at Ohio State, the reality is, like, we got a lot of guys, who can help and who can have a big impact on our team. There's a great deal of depth here. We're gonna, and it's like that most years. And so our job is to make sure everybody's bought in. A lot of that work comes in, when they get on campus. Everybody has to buy in to the team being successful. And roles change within the course of a season, not just from year to year. They change within the course of a season. They could change from non-conference to conference. Roles evolve. E.J. Liddell is a great example for us. His role kept evolving his freshman year, as and we might have had even bigger expectations for him than he had for himself at times, when he first got on campus, and he evolved into being really, really good for us down the stretch of Big Ten play last year. And so it's hard to predict exactly, what it is that how a freshman is going to come in and impact your program, but certainly, we're looking for fit, and that fit comes from, everybody buying into the team being successful, and then being able to grow in your role and continue to improve and get better. And sometimes that improvement happens over a really short period of time. Sometimes it takes a little bit longer.
And for you, Coach P, now, I kind of want to touch upon this aspect. I mean, you guys are a top program, school that obviously players every year want to consider going to, especially around you guys' area. And we talk about obviously freshmen coming into a team. It's hard. We talk about the COVID adjustment year, but typically when you possibly have a top level guy come into the country, a guy that has the dreams of want to be a one-and-done type of talent, how do you orchestrate that? I mean, how does a guy as a freshman come in and possibly be a leader of a team or even become one of the go-to players that young?
Well, I think it happens naturally. I think this is a program, like your coach says this all the time, you get what you earn, and there'd be nothing that's handed out to any player that ever sets foot into our gym. They're going to have to earn their keep, so to speak. And, D'Angelo Russell would be a good example. I think he had aspirations of playing professional basketball. And I wasn't here at the time, but I've heard the story. By January, coaches were looking around at each other like, fellas, we better start recruiting another guard, because he got so good so quick. And could you have imagined that happening? Maybe you could have imagined it happening, but maybe it wasn't something that you thought was super likely before the season. So things happen organically. I think leadership, and if it's authentic, it will fall into place. And kids on the team know who can ball and who can't. And so I think that's a sort of a process that takes shape naturally. But we have a lot of guys. We're always going to recruit guys that have high aspirations and want to play in the NBA and want to play professionally. So that goes along with the territory, of coaching somewhere like Ohio State.
And Coach Johnson, it's a typical thing when you look at years past, go back 4 or 5 years, look at rankings. A lot of those top-ranked guys don't always pan out, and we see a lot of these guys come out of nowhere. These John Morant type guys, these Obi Toppin, Marcus Howard, these guys that just aren't ranked as high, become these phenoms, become these elite top picks in the NBA draft. What separates a guy when you see a freshman come in? How does those guys that don't have attention, kind of these underdog attitudes, how do they develop into these top prospects?
Opportunity, I think, and they pick the right places that fit them, and it allowed them to shine. Basically, I just take it back to the guys that I've been around. If I have to be like at Butler, like Gordon Hayward, Sherman Mack, those guys weren't highly ranked guys, and then they both left early from a mid-major program. Gordon Hayward left after his second year. Now, the culture of your school and your program helps, and you win. That's one thing that young guys forget about. like winning is important to guys at the NBA, unless you're just extremely talented and that potential is just blowing the rooftop off. Like those are the obvious ones. But like when your team and your program win and you win at a high level, that's when good things happen for guys that, quote unquote, wasn't ranked 5-star guys. And those guys, they just work. And like I said, they fit in the right program, they got the right opportunity, and then their talents just shine through. And then everything else take care of itself. Everything else took care of itself. Like Marcus Howard, he got with Marquette. Like everybody knew he was a good player, but nobody knew he was going to be that good. But still, he still was a 4-year player. He still took him 4 years. It was a 4-year player, like because he didn't have that high ceiling like most guys. You look at him like, yeah, he's an NBA guy. But like it took him 4 years to get there. And like the guys that's one and done and high ranked guys, like those guys, those are the guys that got to be real patient, really, because it may not happen right away because it's hard. College coming in as a freshman, it's hard. It's hard, especially if you're going to those high major programs. It's hard. You're not going to just walk in and do everything you think you're going to be able to do.
And for you, Coach Diebler, I mean, we see these guys too as all these 4-year kind of college historic stars that go to the NBA, and kind of a lot of people think that because they're older, they're 23, 24 as a rookie, they may not have as much potential. They may not pan out in the league. And that was the case for some guys, but we see a guy like Devontae Graham pan out to be a very good player, even though he was older. Kuzma, some of these guys, I mean, how important do you think guys that are older coming out as senior 5-year players can still be very beneficial to the NBA?
Absolutely. I think everybody develops differently. And so how you develop, and there's a lot of stories of guys who rush to the NBA who don't have any staying power in the NBA because they hadn't developed, to the point where they were ready to stay or for whatever reason couldn't stay there. I think it's, each situation is different. I think there's certainly, if you look in the NBA, the most successful teams have a great deal of experience, and there's a balance between, some youthful talent and some veteran experience. And there's, several stories. I think you could go either way of whether it's one and dones or even go back to when guys were going from, straight out of high school that made it at the highest level for a long time. And there's also, the stories of guys who grinded through college, who, no one thought was going to be an NBA player, that ended up being an NBA player and stayed in the NBA for a long time, or even guys who you may have been highly ranked, who people thought would be 1 and done or 2 and done, and ended up staying in college for 3 or 4 years and went to the NBA and had successful careers. So everybody develops differently, and it's hard to project when guys are ready to go. I think, it's certainly important, and this is, our philosophy here is like, whether you're a freshman, sophomore, junior, senior, like when you're ready, and the opportunity is there for you, we're going to support you. We'll be the first ones to pack your bags. Like we're going to, take you to the draft if we have to. Like we want that for our guys at the highest level. And we know how hard our guys are working right now for that. But the reality is everybody develops differently, and there is no, so I don't think there's a right or wrong way to do it. To me, it's, can you get to the NBA and stay there? That's what we're trying to help our guys develop into is have some staying power in the NBA, get that second contract, those type of things. And, D'Angelo Russell developed at a pretty rapid rate. Mike Conley, same thing. Like those guys, developed at a rate that was so fast and, so high. And now they work really hard for it too, and still work hard to get to where they're at. But, Keita Bates-Diop took him his 4th year of college to be a draft pick and Big Ten Player of the Year. And, now he's in the bubble. So like everybody's different. Everybody's different. But when it's time, and that's our philosophy. When it is time, whenever that is, like we're gonna help you get there for sure.
Absolutely. And Coach Pete, I want to go to the opposite side of that. I had a few G League coaches on the other day, and they all discussed, you look down the rosters, it's loaded with these former 5 stars, these former McDonald's All-Americans. what exactly happens? Like, what's the mentality of these top guys that don't end up panning out, don't end up making it to the league, and kind of drift away into the G League overseas situations?
Yeah, I don't know the mentality, to be honest with you, like of the guys that haven't panned out. I would say there are more opportunities now than there were 10 years ago, and slightly more lucrative opportunities in the G League or overseas. And I think that's why you're seeing a lot of these guys jump and leave college. I think going along with what Jake said, we'll always support what is in the best interest of our student athletes. It's their decision. We're not going to try to influence that. What our job and our role is to provide them with the best information possible to make a sound decision for their future. But you're right. There's a lot of former McDonald's All-Americans, All-Americans, conference players of the year that are in the G League, maybe because they left too early or something like that. I don't know all of the reasons, but I think that you need to be, it's calculated. We hear this all the time. It's a business decision. Business decisions, there's a lot of different angles. There's not one right answer. And if you're okay with being a developmental player at that level for a few years and then making it to the league or having an opportunity to do it, who would we be to say that's not good? So I think every individual case is different. But I do think when you're looking at making your best decision for your future and your family, there's not one case study that's the same. There's certain, guy may have a child, he may have a family that he has to take care of, a mother at home that he wants to help financially, and we would never fault that or get in the way of that. But there's a lot of different factors that you have to weigh, and they're tough decisions as we've all seen. So
I would add to that, Zach, like there's levels to there's levels to the way guys work too. Like, we're fortunate here. Now this summer, a little bit different. COVID kind of got in the way of this, but like we have pros come back here. We have a bunch of former players who either played in the NBA or who have, played overseas at the highest level in EuroLeague, and they're here, all summer, and we get to witness how hard they work. And I think that's something that a lot of times, like, don't forget how hard it is to get there now. Whether it's D'Angelo Russell, and he was the last guy to leave practice almost every day. I mean, it wasn't an accident. And obviously he's gifted, but it wasn't an accident. He got to where he is right now. I mean, there's Evan Turner. Like, there was a summer here, he was working out 3 times a day. When he was kind of on that verge of maybe not making it to that big contract. Like he put the work in and earned a $70 million deal or whatever it was. So there's that's the thing I think guys got to remember is everybody's talented in the NBA, but that work ethic, that matters, and there's levels to what guys are willing to do for that standpoint to get there and to stay there. And we get to witness that. We're fortunate here because we get, our guys get to work alongside pros, and we get to witness them work every offseason.
I got one more basketball question for you, Coach Johnson, and I got one for everyone else. And that's just talking about there's a lot of different rule changes that could be coming up for the NCAA this upcoming or in the following years. We have the transfer rule. It's going to come into play where guys don't have to sit out potentially. Name, image, likeness deal. And then also we have the G League that came out this past year. Are those 3 things, which one do you see having possibly the biggest impact on the college landscape, on college basketball, and just college sports in general?
Ooh, the biggest? Well, all 3 I think is going to have big impacts. The biggest one, I couldn't tell you which one, but name, image, and likeness is going to be huge. And we're fortunate here at Ohio State. Like, we already talk about the players' brand. Like, we when they leave here, we want their brand to be big, whether it's for them professionally as a athlete or just them professionally going in whatever business or whatever field they're going in, whatever they've been working for academically. So we want their image to be and their brand to be big when they leave here. Transfer rule, it is what it is. And one thing, you're gonna want to try to stay older if you can. You want to try to stay old. You are and old. I mean, you want guys that been in your program long. That's the key. You want guys that been in your program for a long period of time. And then the G League, obviously, the money is better. So you're gonna lose guys that want to go and they, for whatever reason, they need money now, or they have, like other coaches talked about, like, we don't know everybody's circumstances, so it's going to be different. But I know a few assistant coaches in the G League and some guys that have left early. It was like, maybe I should have stayed that extra year, because it is a different being a pro than in college. In college, you got guys that's people taking care of you a lot more. Like, when you go pro, you better be mature. You have to be mature, and you got to do things on your own and take care of your own business. There's not going to be somebody following up behind you all the time, making sure you do this, you did that, did you get that done? Because once you become a pro and you don't do what you're supposed to do, they're getting rid of you. You out of there. Like this, and it's not just the basketball piece. Like, you're representing that program, that professional program. They're gonna have you out in the community, just like colleges does. Like, how are you representing them now? If they're not asking you out there, or you're not volunteering yourself to be out there, like that's another piece. Like, you could stay in the NBA and be like a backup and be a great dude, and just you out in the community all the time. You're going to read books to elementary schools, or you got your own backpack for kids. Like, those other stuff matter too, as much as it matters as how you play on the floor. Like, when you be a pro, you got to be a pro all the way around. It's just not about being a pro on the court. So the G guys that's going to the G League, yes, you can work your tail off, you can get your two-way, but you make sure you're being a pro off the floor as well, because they look at that as well.
Oh, damn. My final thing I was like wrapping up with everyone I have on is talking about a legacy you guys want to build. Kind of by the time you guys do step away from coaching, move on, retire, what do you want your legacy to be for what you guys accomplished as a coach, wherever you guys end up finishing up? Coach Diebler, we'll start with you.
Whew. I got into coaching because some of the most influential people in my life have been coaches. My father still is a high school coach, actually, here in Ohio. I played for Homer Drew, who's one of the nicest people, Hall of Fame coach, who had a huge impact in my life. So the impact I want to leave is I want the guys that I've been fortunate enough to coach to, feel something similar like that about me. And I want them to feel like, they can always come to me if they need anything. I want them to feel like, they know that I'll always be there for them. That's, ultimately, and I want to help them achieve their dreams. I want to help them achieve their dreams on the court, playing professionally, but also of, becoming great family members and business owners and, whatever it may, fathers. All that stuff is important, for me. That's what I hope guys that I've been able to coach and will coach, in the future, I can have some sort of impact that's been had in my life by coaches, guys that I played for.
Absolutely. How would you Coach Pedon?
It's a great question. I think when I think on, I don't think about that, to be honest, like big picture stuff. It's interesting when you ask that, because I'm like, it puts me in a different frame of mind. You're looking back, what do you want your impact to be or your legacy to be? And we're so day to day. But what I would say is this: at the end of my career, I would want my impact to be that I made a difference in the guys I coached in their lives. And I would want them to feel like I was a conduit for their development. And I take pride in the basketball side of it, but I take just as much pride in helping guys fight through tough stuff and grow and learn and develop and become better because of that tough stuff that they fought through. So developing guys as people, as players, as students, as athletes, yes. But I really I take a lot from helping these guys really fight through and respond to adverse situations and tough things that you're going to go through it, in these as you're going from these stages of being a young man to a man, and for these guys being college athletes to hopefully being professional athletes, we're in a position where we can make a real big impact. So it's all based on relationships and loving them. And I think that's one of the things our staff, I think, does really well, is we don't look at it only through a basketball lens, which I think that's a fleeting perspective, if you ask me, because we're here to make an impact on their whole lives.
Without a doubt. And last but not least, Coach Johnson, what do you want your legacy to be?
Well, I like to think myself as a man of service, living to lift others up. That's kind of how I got into this in this profession, and it kind of just stuck with me. And as along the way, I started being around programs. That's their drive, is to lift others up, and that's pretty much it. And like what Pedon said, like, not just basketball. Yes, I want them to achieve their dreams of being a professional. I want to be around guys that want to be NBA professional players, whether it's overseas or NBA. But also I want them to feel like I'm a role model and leading them in how I carry myself off the floor, the type of father I am, the type of husband I am. I want to go. I get joy going to their weddings, former players' weddings, like watching them Facebook right now. They having kids. Like I did my job. I feel like I did my job. I help enhance them from their family development. They've been 3 years, 4 years around me, help enhance them to that next level. That's what I would like my legacy to be. Somebody like, yeah, T helped me out, and not just basketball. But now, don't get it twisted. Now I've been to the Final Four. Like, I want one. Like I've been there twice now. Like, I still want to be a part of a national championship team. Like, but it's all in all, it's about serving others, serving the players, helping them reach their potential. Like, I'm an old man now. Like, I got 3 boys and a wife. Yeah, Jake, I see you shaking.
Yeah, he's real old. As a matter of fact, can you guess his age? We were going to do that before we got off here today. You know?
But
you look so young, man. You wouldn't know he's 58 years old.
You're hesitating, Zach. You're hesitating there.
Zach, wait, Zach. Go ahead, make your guess right now, Zach.
37, 38.
My man.
Oh, my God.
My man, Zach.
Yeah.
Zach, my man. But no, I'm 46, Zach. I'm 46. I like the 37, though. I like the 37, but yeah, but like, but that's what we're here for. We're here to make sure, like, when I'm talking to recruits, I want them to feel like I was their role model. Stuff off the floor, because we're already getting good players. We know we're recruiting talented players. We want to be around good players, guys that's striving to be the best in everything they do, whether it's in academics or on the floor or out in their community. Like, those are the type of guys we want to be around, and we're gonna help lead by showing them how we live our lives. Like, because they're gonna watch us. They're around us all the time. Mm-hmm. If I'm sitting here cussing out my wife, and now I might beat my boys in front of them every now and then, but like, they get in trouble. That's what happens. Like, we got to hold you accountable. You do something you're not supposed to do, you're going to get held accountable to that. Like, because life isn't fair. Life isn't fair. So, like, we got to help them along, like, that's going to happen in life. When you're done with us, when you're done here, it's going to happen later in your life. And we just want them to be prepared and ready to take on whatever challenges come their way.
Absolutely. Well, I definitely appreciate all you guys for coming on today, and look forward to seeing what God's got next for you guys whenever you guys get back on the court.
Hey, Zach, real quick, I wanted to say one thing here, and I mean this. I want to thank you for what you're doing for these younger guys, these high school guys especially, because you're giving them a sort of a vehicle to put their platform out there and brand themselves in a way. And for us as coaches, we can't evaluate in person. We can't see their nonverbal body language. We can't see how coachable they are. We don't know their personalities from afar as well. We've watched a lot of your videos, and it opens up a lot about the character of these guys. And so what you're doing is a great thing for basketball in general, but especially, this generation of guys that are being recruited in our sport.
Appreciate it, coaches.
Yeah, thanks, Zach.
Yeah,
thanks,
Zach. Appreciate you having us on.
Thanks, Zach.
You guys are always welcome on. God bless.